What's the most awkward, negative, or plain crazy response you've gotten after performing a good deed? I was driving home from university one day, and I stopped for a red light. I looked around and caught eyes with an older gentleman in the car next to me, and we both snapped our glances forward as if we had caught each other looking at dongs in the men's bathroom. I sheepishly looked back to the guy, and we caught eyes a second time. I waved. He laughed and waved back. Awesome. Why don't I do this more often? I spent a week waving at people randomly and being super friendly. It was 11 in the evening and I was walking back to my car in a friend's apartment complex. An older man walked by and I took a brief moment to greet him. "Good evening, sir." And he responded, "Oh, God, please don't hurt Emmy." I was so taken aback by his response that all I could do was stare. He cried, "I have a family. They need Emmy. Please, please, just let Emmy go home." I told him to have a nice night, and I never talked to strangers ever again. And to this day he tells his friends and family about the night he was almost murdered in the parking lot of an apartment complex. I found a woman's purse on the road while walking back to a shuttle from an all-day concert. It was close to midnight and there was 50,000 people walking 2 kilometers from the site to where the buses, shuttles, parking lots were, etc. On the shuttle, I looked through the purse. There was lots of cash, credit cards, expensive sunglasses, etc. I pulled out her cell phone and called the numbers that made sense. Home, mom and dad, most recently called, etc. This was before texting was really huge, and she hadn't sent a text in 2 weeks. I had no luck, so we went to bed and decided to try again in the morning. Her address was from another province, so I knew finding her before she left, and before we went back to our home province as well, was important. One of her friends finally answered and said she was staying with another friend. She gave me a number of someone else who knew someone who knew that girl's number. I finally got the number to the house where she was staying and called it. I asked for the girl and she said, "Oh, cool. So can you bring it here?" The house was out of our way, not on the way home at all. I offered to meet back at the concert site, or a restaurant or gas station along the way. She sighed and said, "My friends are still sleeping, so how do you expect me to get there?" I decided we could go slightly out of our way and go to a restaurant near her for brunch. She ended up waking her friend who drove her there anyways. She comes in, walks up to me and just puts her hand out. I give her the purse. "Did you steal anything? I know exactly what was in here, so I'll know if you stole anything. Number. Everything is as I found it, but it might have been picked up by someone else before me." She searches through everything before she's satisfied I didn't rip her off. I am now expecting at least a thank you. This is what I get. "A bunch of my friends and family said you called them in the middle of the night and this morning. Why did you do that? And you were using my phone for long distance and I don't have a package, so you cost me money." I was dumbfounded. All I could muster was I had no idea how else to find you. "Would you rather I had just left it in the street?" "I don't know. It's just been annoying." She turns around and leaves. While working at the Geek Squad, I was at an in-home job. Upon entering the customer's home, they obviously didn't have much, and I immediately felt bad that they contact the Geek Squad, cause they're super overpriced. They only wanted a hardware install, which was a super stupid reason for it anyway. Upon powering up their computer, I noticed it was horribly infected with spyware and running like crap. They wanted a memory upgrade, and I knew that there was no way in heck that was going to affect a machine this badly infected. As a GS agent, my primary job was upselling, not fixing computers. Big surprise. And I didn't feel right telling them it was going to be another $130 to fix their machine, as they were already forking out $150 for a memory upgrade, and they were obviously poor as heck. Kids running around half naked in old faded clothes, mattresses on the floor, ancient color TV, nothing in the apartment for furnishings, and this PC which was obviously their main source of entertainment. Yeah, I was judging them, but whatever. It was obvious they weren't doing so well. I had no other calls for the day, so I decide to be a good guy and fix up their machine, get it all cleaned up, running like brand spanking new, show them they didn't need a hardware upgrade, and explain to them that I was never there, I wasn't charging them, and to have a nice day. They were super grateful, on the verge of tears and whatnot, and I leave feeling awesome and like a computer ninja. I think nothing of it until 2 days later. I get called into my manager's office. He sits me down and throws out her name. I'm thinking, oh crap, he's going to fire me for not charging them. I say, well, yeah, what about her manager? Then tells me that she called in and complained about the service, said I was super rude, and demanded I make the check out to me personally instead of the Geek Squad. She demanded a refund, saying the job wasn't done right, and she even had the nerve to say that she also thinks I stole her wedding ring. My jaw just drops to the floor, and I sit there stunned for a moment, when the manager looks at me and says, so, care to say anything in defense? I decide that there's no way out of it and spill the entire story, including the situation to the manager. I pull up my bank statement to prove I haven't had any deposits in the last few days, and he counters that I could have just cashed it. At this point, I'm all, are you kidding me? You really think I'd do something like that? In the end, I managed to convince the manager I didn't steal anything, but I had to deal with an investigation from the police, pay for her services out of my own pocket, and my manager also made me write a formal apology to her. Gave a homeless dude an extra sandwich. I got something on a 2-for-1 type deal, and he bitched that I didn't give him money and threw the sandwich all over. Whatever, frick that dude. Similar story, gave a homeless person around £1 in change. He looked at it, then me, then said more. I told him to frick off and walked away. Another time bought a guy a newspaper, can of pop, Snickers, and a Cornish pasty. This guy almost went crazy with excitement, even started talking to his dog whilst going through the stuff saying look what the nice man bought us. When I was a kid, my mother and I spotted a lost dog running through the streets. We immediately stopped and got her into our car, taking her to our house in order to call the number on her tag. The owner showed up 8 hours later with a box of cookies as a thank you to us. Upon my mother opening the door and seeing my then overweight mom, the woman's face fell and she immediately said, well, clearly you won't be needing these. She then tucked the box into her purse and grabbed her dog. No thank you was ever said. Your mom should have said, yeah, you're right, I'm so full from eating your dog, and shut the door in her face. This clueless guy on a cell phone went to step off the crowded sidewalk to cross the street, not noticing the massive double-decker bus headed our way. I grabbed his backpack he was wearing and pulled him back just as the bus came flying by, basically saving the dude's life. Everyone around me gasped, screamed, but as the crosswalk started flashing green for pedestrians, he just went on his way and crossed without ever looking at me or thanking me, just continued his convo on the phone. Raked and blew the leaves off a friend's yard because they were starting to blow onto her neighbor's recently cleaned and mowed immaculate yard. Said neighbor came out and screamed at me that she had just gotten her yard worked on and I had better not mess it up. I explained that I was doing a good deed for a friend that was mostly a benefit to her, the neighbor, but all I got was I don't give a dang for a reply. 2 years later, said neighbor's husband gets cancer and loses his income and they fall into financial trouble and have to lay off their lawn service and their lawn goes to crap. I took the opportunity to again do the right thing and stat-trutted to maintain their yard and continue to this day for free. The gratitude on this lady's face when I see her is priceless. We never bring up what she did to me, but I know she remembers. I can still hear my late mother saying, kill him with kindness Chris, kill him with kindness. Upvoted for being the epitome of human kindness. I was waiting in line to do a return at a department store. A little boy, probably about 3 or 4 years old, stood a bit away from the registers crying and calling for his mommy. I looked around trying to spot mommy but didn't see any adults paying attention to him. After about 5 minutes of this, I went and asked him, hey honey, are you okay? Let's see if the checkout lady can call your mom. I gestured for him to follow me, didn't touch the kid. The cashier paged the mom, who came almost immediately and was thankful. After the mom left with the boy, the cashier and the 2 customers in front of me in line chatted about how worried they were that I might have been kidnapping him. I was standing right behind them. Yet they said nothing to you. Fixed a customer's transmission for free because they had no cash, new kid etc. It broke a month outside of the 12-month warranty and we fixed it for free again. Their response was to leave horrible ratings for our business all over the web that are still up today. Accused of attempted child abduction for grabbing a kid who was about to fall off a curb in front of a bus. Let me guess, you're male. Double points if you're black. When I was in Cub Scouts, I offered to sell raffle tickets around my neighborhood to raise money for charity. I knocked on a neighbor's door and she lectured me on how gambling was immoral. Even her husband got involved. I was 8 at the time. Ever fix someone's computer for them? Every problem that computer has for the rest of its life is your fault now. So, true. This didn't happen to me, but many years ago my oldest sister was exiting a supermarket when an elderly, disabled woman in a wheelchair came rolling in through the exit gate. Trying to be considerate for this obviously impaired woman, my sister opened the gate for her so she could roll on in. The woman looked at my sister and said, "I don't need help from no Jap." My sister said she just walked straight to her car and started crying. Oh yeah, she's not even Japanese. It happens. I once held a door open for a homeless woman at a 7-11 and she told me to go back to North Korea. I'm Native American. My cousin told her to go back to the trash can she lived in. Interesting thing about some Chinese people I recently noticed twice in the past couple of weeks. Here in China, I've been walking past someone on the street when they've dropped something on the ground. One girl dropped her phone, another guy dropped his lighter. Each time I bent down to pick it up for them they freaked the frick out, thinking I'm taking their crap. The guy starting yelling mine mine in Chinese, of course, while the girl violently grabbed the phone out of my hand. I guess Chinese people just don't help other people pick up their crap. My good deed was nothing extreme, but here goes. I was in the cafe of my college, about to get some hot water in my thermos, when I noticed someone standing behind me. Now since I had previously had hot chocolate in my mug, I needed to rinse it out. I felt like this other person should go before me since she was merely getting hot water. I say, "You can go first. I need to rinse my mug out." She looks at me incredulously. "What did you say?" "Me. UHH. You can go first. I have to rinse my mug out." Her, in an exceedingly pissy manner. "Oh, that's not what I thought you said. You should be careful what you say." What in the frick? I also found out later that this woman is a department head at the school I attend, and batshit crazy. Been great if you would have said "and you should be careful what you think." It didn't happen to me, but a friend of mine. He was walking down the street when the lady in front of him dropped her wallet unknowingly. He picked it up, ran to catch up with her, and said, "Mom, you dropped your wallet back there." She looked at him and asked, "Did you take anything out of it?" My friend, who was still holding the wallet, flung it to the other side of the street and kept walking. Thankfully, there are laws in Canada that prevent any sort of legal recourse from this, but I absolutely hate it when people, and their families, who have just benefited from the help of a first responder, paramedic, security guard, etc., complain about the service they've just received and threaten to sue. I actually witnessed a rescue where a woman was pulled feet first out of a raging river. The first thing she said when they pulled her to the shore, "You almost broke my leg, idiot." I wanted to freaking tear her head off. Yeah, some states have good Samaritan laws. Makes me sad for us as a species that such things are necessary. I was bartending a private event and found a purse that someone had left on the bar, so I tucked it away behind the register. Towards the end I heard a lady complaining about it being stolen, and how there was a lot of cash and valuables in it. I then returned it. She was lying about the cash. She tried to write me a check for a reward, which I declined, asking only that she someday pay the good deed forward. The next day she went on Yelp and wrote this huge review claiming that the bartender attempted to steal her purse, and the only reason she got it back was because of how vocal she was about it, and that I got scared. Darn Yelp. I never believe half the reviews on there. I once held the door open for a man with one leg at a Rally's and I went, "Here you go, sir." His response, in this deep menacing voice, "Call me Satan." I was waiting at a bus stop, and this sweet looking little old lady was having trouble getting down the curb to cross the road, so I helped her cross the road. "I wish her a pleasant day," to which she replies, "Freaking foreigners, get out of my country, thanks." You should have picked her up and put her back on the other side of the street. I was walking with my tour group through Montmartre when I noticed that a bee was flying around and then landed in the hair of the woman in front of me. I calmly tapped her shoulder and said, "Mom, there is a bee in your hair." She looked at me with a blank stare and shook her head. Language barrier. So I thought for a second and then circled my hand around my head while making the BZZZZZZZ sound. She immediately started panicking, yelling and swatting her head. Needless to say, the bee stung her and then she looked at me like I had planted it there just to frick with her. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have said anything, but I was just trying to be helpful. Don't lie, man, you planted that bee. I was walking to class when passing through a doorway I noticed someone behind me and decided to hold the door open wide. Suddenly a girl walked through and started off on a crazy tirade about me, assuming she couldn't open the door herself because she was a girl. It was right around when she said, "Men like you disgust me," when the guy in the electric wheelchair that I was actually holding the door for made his way through and said, "Hey, thanks man." The look on her face after her sudden realization of the situation sticks with me to this very day. This is very refreshing. Thanks to the polite wheelchair man. I used to work for a company that set up tents for weddings. This Bridezilla made us move the tent we already had set up. Since the customer always gets their way, we did. She promised she'd buy us pizza and beer for staying longer to make her happy. We all agreed. Almost 5 hours later we finished with no pizza or beer. We went up to her to get the contracts signed and she said, "I forgot I promised you refreshments. Here you go." She bent down and gave us the garden hose. I had just gotten off work and was headed to a local tavern before class. At an intersection, I noticed a 40-ish-year-old black woman in a nurse's uniform pushing her car through the intersection in the middle of downtown and start heading up a hill. I thought for a brief moment and did an illegal U-turn in the middle of the road to come back and assist her in pushing it partway up the hill and into a parking lot that was about 75 feet away. I'm an electrical engineer and I was wearing my work clothes, which consists of a button-up shirt with geek paraphernalia in the left pocket, driving my 2011 black Camaro. I'm 6 feet tall, about 225 pounds and have a very deep voice. I pulled up behind her and turned on my flashers for safety and got out of my car. The look on her face was of utter fear. I, in the most calm voice I have, mentioned that she was pushing her car up a hill and I was more than happy to assist her in getting it to the parking lot. She was shaking like a leaf and through her shaky voice, she mentioned that her husband was on his way. Several times, I could see that I was terrifying this lady for some unknown reason, so I apologized and wished her a good day, hopped in my car and headed to the tavern. I'm still at a loss to this day as to what the heck had happened. Stranger danger. Was on a railroad platform at Thailand, and this kid, around 3 years old, wandering around all by herself and was getting relatively close to edge of platform while a train was about to enter the platform. As a matter of split-second decision making, I ran up and grabbed the kid's hand and started dragging her back. And while I was doing this, some lady starts to scream out of nowhere pointing at me. She was quickly followed by a mob of people pointing and yelling at me in Thai. Needless to say, I had to run my butt out of there. I was pretty sure I wouldn't be able to explain the situation to those people in English. Happens to me when I hand out free candies at the playground. Maybe not a good deed because it was my job, but I saved this little kid one time at the pool I worked at. The water was only 4 feet deep, but he obviously couldn't touch the bottom or swim well at all. Anyway, I hopped in and grabbed him. Said the lifeguard lines like, "Hey, I got you, bud, you okay? We're gonna go to the side now." Poor kid was crying like crazy. My manager came over and was like, "Great job, Max." Then his mom came over and just basically was like, "He's okay, alright, come on," and walked away. Not even a thank you to me or the manager for saving her son. Similar thing happened to me once. Some kid jumped off the 3-meter board right onto his friend's leg, who then goes vertical and underwater. Naturally, I don't wait around and I get in the water, do the safe, get the kid to the edge, and he starts yelling at me for saving him. Pretty sure he was just embarrassed, as he was like 14. Just a weird situation really. I was visiting New Orleans and was taking a walk around the French Quarter at around 5 AM. I hear someone yelling at me, "Hey big man, big man, big man." Wait, I turned to see this old homeless guy with a ball cap on wobbling towards me with haste. I'm more curious than nervous as I'm 6 feet 7 inches and this guy was all of 5 feet 3 inches. He says, mind helping me out with something? He looks kind of desperate but friendly. I say that I'll help him and ask what he needs. I'm a bit nervous now because I have no clue what he's going to ask my help with. He whips out a bottle of gin and says that he can't get the lid off. I open his gin and he thanks me profusely, saying that his day is now going to be much better. Outside a gas station in Mississippi, a guy asked me for 12 cents. I fished out a quarter, then he said, I only need 12 cents, then he walked away without taking the quarter. I tried to give a homeless woman on the subway some bagels. She was begging people for money for food. When I tried to give them to her, she yelled in my face, I want KFC. They were raisin bagels. Should have one-upped her somehow. Usually when people yell loudly at me for something stupid, or I feel like they're going nuts, I just start going at a low octave and get higher and higher if they don't stop. Sometimes this works. Helped an ex-co-worker put food on his family's table by establishing a small online business, bringing in about $3,500 in profit per month, split 50/50. He kicked me out and quit our day job so he can sit home and keep all the money for himself. He even intimidated my employer and attempted to sue me after I tried getting my part of the money. Right now he's sitting home reaping money from what was mostly my work, while I'm still stuck at the day job we were trying to escape together. The same day job that he quit after I established us. Sigh. Last time I reach out to help someone with a substance abuse problem. Never again. Sounds like that business will collapse soon. Too bad about your missed share : still, if it was mostly your work, you can start a similar business again. He can't. I was in a part of the Bronx that is, well, ghetto. I'm inspecting a building when all of a sudden, out of a townhouse comes this little girl, no older than 2. She starts walking straight for the street. I freak out. I go grab her and go back to the townhouse to hand her over to her mother. After telling mom the story, she just says, okay. I'm like, ma'am, your 2-year-old was walking straight for the street. I don't think you get what that means. She says, well, WTF you want then? A medal? Go freak yourself. Needless to say, child services were called. I hate it when people say okay in place of thanks. It's even one syllable less. If they said nothing at all, I'd feel better than okay. I'm driving to work on a snowy morning, making sure to be very careful, as conditions are bad. I'm at a traffic light, and when it turns green, I begin to go. A middle-aged man suddenly comes literally sprinting down the sidewalk and bursts into the road in front of my car. I slam on the brakes, tires squeal, and fortunately I stop in plenty of time, as he's still a few feet from the hood of my car. He's a bit stunned, I guess, and just stands there in the road as we stare at each other for a second, and then his face twists up and he gives me the middle finger, straight to my face for a good solid 2 or 3 seconds, then he storms off. I was too flabbergasted to even process it at the time. Man jumps into traffic. I avoid hitting him, and he flips me off. To this day I don't know what to make of it. TLDR, man gives me the finger after he jumps into traffic and I do not hit him. I can only conclude that he was trying to die. I helped a lady carry her stroller up the stairs leading out of the subway. Her, you Mormon? Me, no, her, good. Ain't no Mormon laying them filthy polygamist hands on my baby. I saw an old homeless guy walking in the middle of winter with paper towels taped around his feet. I had just bought a new pair of work boots, carpet installer at the time, and I got out of my truck and offered the guy my old, but still perfectly serviceable and far better than tape and paper towels, boots. He punched me in the face and was winding up for another one when I turned and scrambled back into my van. The whole time he was swearing and screaming as if I had pee on his daughter or something. I bought a house about a year ago. My neighbor is an elderly single woman who seemed nice enough at first. I gave her a Christmas present, would shovel her walk when it snowed, etc. Last spring I planted some new grass in the front of my home, because the grass I had was mostly ugly weeds. I even planted some new seed in our tiny shared plot of grass. I live in a town home, since I knew she was old and probably didn't feel much like gardening. One day when watering the new grass, she started screaming out of the blue, "Water is getting on my grass and that a drop of water may hit my foot and don't get any drops of water on my concrete." Think of it like we live 500 yards away from each other. Since then she has been an absolute horror, cutting down my tomatoes that were growing on her side of the fence that I earlier said she could have when they matured, screaming at my boyfriend when he attempted to mow the entirety of our shared piece of grass, because it looks weird as heck when only half of 8 square feet is mowed. She even went so far as to pull weeds from her lawn and place them on top of her half of the grass, so we couldn't touch it with a mower. It makes no goddamn sense. Evil crone. As some of you of the Midwest may know, last winter, Missouri experienced one of the most treacherous winters that we've ever faced in decades. The University of Missouri, Columbia had closed school for the first time in about 40 years due to such harsh weather conditions. One day, my friends and I were semi-stranded out at his place off campus, which is at the bottom of a slightly slanted cul-de-sac, and we noticed his neighbors having trouble with their car. We decide to be good neighbors and try to help them by pushing their cars up. So as we run out to help them, we shout a little, "Seems like you guys could use some help," flash a smile, and proceed to help them without their permission. Because who needs permission when you appear to be in genuine need of help? Yet, this bee decides to bark back at us and say, "We don't need your help. Go away." We then decided to just stand there and watch these people struggle getting up the road. Back when I was 8 or 9, me and my family went to a shopping mall in Saudi Arabia. Since it was shopping season, all the shopping carts were taken. Luckily, or unluckily, we parked close to this elder man struggling to get his groceries in the back of his Jeep. I decided to help him out with the groceries and take the cart from him. Win-win, right? Wrong. As I approach him and offer to help him, that cranky old coot freaked out and raised his walking stick at me, telling me to go away. I raised my hands up in defense and backed away slowly. Heading into work one day, there was dude in front of me on a big new Honda Goldwing. He seemed a little unsteady on it. It just so happened that he was going the direction I was, just he was in front. At one point he decided the person in front of him was going too slow, so he zooms around them and takes off. I round the next big bend in the road and see busted pieces of plastic all over, and this dude way out in the ditch with his bike on top of him. So, traffic is backed up and nobody is helping the dude. I pull over and run up to him and his radio is blasting gospel music. He's an older dude, a little out of shape, nose obviously broken and lips all fricked up, and he just screams at me, "Turn off the fricking radio, goddammit." So I try and figure out how the radio works, but it's not turning off, so after 5 seconds he screams, "Just leave it alone, useless." At that point another woman runs up and says she's a nurse, and he says, "B, do I look like I need a nurse? Help me up." And she looks at me and we both give each other a frick this guy shrug and go back to our cars. Fire and EMT were showing up right as we were leaving. Let the people that get paid for that crap deal with buttholes like that. I had a girl at a bar give me her drink to hold while she went to the bathroom. When she got back I went to hand it back to her and she said, "You take a sip first." I finished the entire drink and walked away. Freaking boss. Buying cigarettes at a gas station. The cashier noticed the organ donor emblem on my license. He said, "Organ donor? You're dumb. They do terrible things to your body when you die. And what if they give your organs to a drunk driver who just killed people?" He was 100% serious, but I didn't respond. It took me a good hour to process the whole statement. Caught a child after he jumped from a really high jungle gym. Mother told me she was gonna call the cops on me. I had a teacher once who hated me for no reason. I tried many ways to get on his good side with no avail. One day I decided to make some brownies and bring them in for the class. Everyone was happy, except for the teacher. He pulled me outside the class and told me it was irresponsible to bring in brownies during Lent when some people might have given them up. I gave up trying to make him like me that day and decided that screwing with him would be my new goal. That was a fun year, and another fun year when I had him again the next year. I stopped a drunken woman from committing suicide by jumping off a bridge. All my friend could say was, "She's probably worse off now that you've helped her continue her unhappy life." Pee on my bonfire somewhat. When I was a grossly underpaid public defender, I once represented a guy that was accused of participating in an organization that stole millions of dollars of frozen seafood from a distribution warehouse. There was no question of his part in the scheme as he had already given a statement and the other 5 defendants had already all pled and were turning state's evidence against him. I spent almost a year of very late nights, reading over thousands of inventory documents, doing my own investigation, conducting depositions and filing motions before I finally was able to file a motion to suppress based on evidence I had found. After I won the motion, the state no longer had any evidence and had no choice but to dismiss the case. When I proudly told the client what I had been able to accomplish, he looked at me, rolled his eyes and said, "Took you long enough." He turned his back on me and walked away. I immediately quit my job so I could start charging those suckers out the nose for the work I was doing for them. You have been spotted by the money pigeon. Comment gimme gimme and he will bless you with good fortune. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.